Hey, what's up guys? Scott here, back once more with another video. Today I'm going to be doing a video about two things. One, kind of going into Avengers Doomsday after Thunderbolts, or the new Avengers as I should say, and kind of the setup for that, and story points set up at the end of that film, and how I think it's going to tie into Avengers Doomsday, and a trope that I hate across superhero and other forms of media and storytelling that I'm afraid is going to come into play in Avengers Doomsday. So, first, let's touch on this. Avengers Doomsday is coming next year, and the main villain of that film is going to be Victor Von Doom, or Doctor Doom, and a very Cliff Notes brief version of his origin from the comics, at least, is he was a brilliant scientist who was really good friends with Reed Richards, or Mr. Fantastic. They went to college together and were good friends. Anyway, they were working on an experiment, or Victor Von Doom was working on an experiment, and the experiment went horribly wrong. There was a big explosion, and it horribly disfigured his face. So after that explosion, because of the disfigurement, he became a villain. He had a mask created to put on his face to hide his disfigurement, and started studying. Not only is he a brilliant scientist with technology like Tony Stark, but also he started studying the arts of magic and sorcery. So this is a villain that's not only has great science prowess and technological prowess, and his armor gives him abilities too, just like Iron Man. His armor has a lot of abilities, but he's also a very powerful sorcerer. And so he's powerful on both fronts, and one of the most powerful villains in the Marvel canon. And we saw in the MCU how big of a threat Thanos was. Well, in the comics, this is a guy who, in one of the comics, was able to just walk. Him and Thanos are going to fight, and he just walks right up and rips Thanos' spine out like it's nothing. So that's the level of threat we're dealing with this time around. So, yeah, that should put things in perspective for what's to come. But anyway, so that's kind of just a brief rundown of his origin, and how, at least in the comics. And so, but anyway, so that the ending of Thunderbolts, the post-credit scene of Thunderbolts, takes place 14 months after the events of the main movie. And we see that the new Avengers, Bucky Barnes, Yelena Belova, Red Guardian, John Walker, U.S. Agent, and Ava Starr, or Ghost. They've been the new Avengers for a little over a year at this point. And they're having this discussion. They're coming back from a mission or something. They walk in. I love their new logo, by the way, with the red, kind of the red A is different from the original Avengers A. Kind of give them. I love their new suits, and I love their logo. Anyway, they're coming back from a mission or something. They're having this discussion about how Sam Wilson is forming his own team of Avengers, and how they're kind of butting heads with Sam and his team over who's the real Avengers. Is it And so there's a lot of animosity and hostility there between the two teams that we see, that it's implied that's going on. So that's setting up a very interesting dynamic going into Avengers Doomsday, where you're going to have two different teams of Avengers trying to fight Doom and his forces, but also at odds with each other. So the setup for that is pretty interesting, right? To have these two teams, at odds with each other, but they're also having to focus on, fighting Doom. So that concept is really interesting. What I'm nervous about is that there is this trope that I absolutely hate across mainly superhero movies and shows, but it's been in other movies too. But where there's situations where the heroes have the main villain down, or they're just this close to stopping him, or they have him down to arrest him, or in some cases even kill them, and something happens that's just so convenient, or they get in an argument, or they do something so out of character and so stupid for like 5 minutes that just at that moment to allow the villain to escape or succeed, whatever. I'm going to give you some examples. First one, a really good one. Mace Windu, Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. He's fighting Emperor Palpatine in his office, and it's not an easy fight. I mean, Mace is really having to focus, he's fighting one of the most powerful Sith Lords ever, And he gets him down. He's able to disarm him. He's able to disarm him, and he has him down, and he hesitates. And Mace Windu never hesitated in any of the other media. He always made sure he put his enemy down before they had a chance to react, if he had to. And now he's fighting the most dangerous Sith Lord in all the galaxy, and he gets him down and he hesitates and starts talking instead of just ending it. And that, of course, then we know that it gives Anakin time to, Anakin blocks his saber and cuts off his hands, and then Palpatine electrocutes him and shoots him out the window. And so that's a good one. Arrowverse, big Arrowverse fan here. Arrow season 4, the heroes are fighting a villain called Damien Dark, who gets his powers from this magical idol, and at one point they're able to destroy it. The idol is destroyed, and he's in prison at this point. He is no threat to them. Well, I won't say he's not a threat, but his source of power is destroyed. It's destroyed in pieces. All they gotta do is smash it up a little more, smash it into a million pieces, and throw it out in the ocean or burn it or whatever. But no, they decided to put it all back together and put it on a shelf in the most obvious hiding spot ever. And of course, Damien's henchmen get the idol, and he gets his powers back, and he ends up killing Black Canary in one of the most heartbreaking deaths of the entire series. And it was so frustrating because they were so stupid to put the idol back together and put it on the shelf. Ugh. An MCU example. The Star-Lord in Avengers Infinity War with Thanos. Some Avengers and Guardians are fighting Thanos on Titan. And, after this, and they have this plan. Okay, they got this plan. They're going to get this plan. They have this plan. They're going to neutralize him. Mantis is going to use her powers to, neutralize his mind and put him in kind of a trance, so that gives them time, the others time to get the gauntlet off. Well, after a long, hard-fought battle, they finally get Thanos in the trance. Mantis is taking all she can to hold him, and they've almost got the gauntlet off. And just at that moment, the Gamora comes up, the subject of Gamora, and Peter Quill Star-Lord finds out that Gamora's been killed, and then loses his cool at the absolute most imperfect time. If he waited just a little longer until they got the gauntlet off, they could have done it. I mean, they would have. But no, Thanos snaps out of his trance, is able to get the gauntlet back on. The plan's ruined, and he ends up succeeding in his goal. Another example, another Arrowverse example, Crisis on Earth X crossover. My favorite crossover out of all of them, honestly. Amazing action scenes, great story, great fights between the heroes and villains. But in the final battle between the heroes of the Earth Prime, and then Reverse Flash and his invading army, the other good guys are fighting, and Barry and Reverse Flash are going at it. And at one point, Barry has Reverse Flash up against the wall, and he's like, then he decides to just let Reverse Flash go, and Reverse Flash is like, Barry just goes, go on, get out of here. And so Reverse Flash leaves, and that's just an outright stupid decision, because Reverse Flash keeps coming back later to cause more trouble. So those are 4 primary examples of what I'm talking about, of where the main hero, good guy character, just goes out of character, completely stupid for 5 minutes, and it gives the villain just enough time to succeed or escape, do whatever they need to do. So my fear going into Doomsday is that they planted the seed of a storyline of there being 2 opposing Avengers teams. The new Avengers, which led by Bucky and Yelena, and then Sam Wilson's team, and whoever's going to be on that team, of there being friction between them. Okay, that's an interesting story idea, to have tension between 2 teams who are also trying to fight this new villain. That in and of itself is a ground for some interesting storytelling and some really good tension there. But what I'm nervous about is that it's going to come to a critical moment in the film where they have Doom defeated and down, or they just had to do this one thing to stop him from accomplishing his plan, and then the 2 teams are going to get in an argument over whatever, something stupid like, no, we caught him, or no, we caught him, no, we caught him, or no, we need to do it this way, we need to do it that way, or we're the real Avengers, no, we're the real Avengers, stuff like that. And it's going to give Doom just the amount of time he needs to succeed in what he wants to do. That's what I'm nervous about. So I've seen too many movies, especially superhero movies and shows in my lifetime, to not think that that's going to come into play in the story somehow. So That's my theory going into Doomsday, is that the friction between these two Avengers teams, the tension, animosity between these two between these two teams, is what's going to let Doom ultimately succeed in this movie. Now, I could be wrong. They could not do that, but I've seen too many movies. Like I said, I've seen too many movies and other examples of that trope that I hate to not be nervous about that happening. But we will see what happens. Anyway, guys, I'm still excited for Doomsday. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned and peace out.